Alright, so I'm going to create a brand new version of Pong. This time around what we're going to do is we're actually going to introduce object-oriented programming, which is the act of turning a lot of the components you see on the screen into individual objects themselves. This actually helps in organizing the code. So we'll still have our public void setup. It will set up the canvas for us. So here we are going to say that the size is, 800 by 600. Ooh, that is not 600. We'll still have our draw method as long as I don't continue to screw up my typing. So this entire file is just gonna handle, the updating and the setup. Pong OOP. Oh, that looks weird. Whatever. New tab. So now what we're going to do is we're going to define a ball file. This file is called a class file, and it's named after the name of the object we're trying to create, and that is the ball. This is the name of the file and the class itself. We are going to define the properties of what it means to be a ball, which is to have an x and y for position, to have a Vx and a Vy for movement, and then to have a width for size. We need a constructor. This is going to be called upon anytime we try to create this object, and it looks like this. As you can see, the name of it kind of looks like a method or a function, but it's named after the class itself. We're going to say that we're going to center it on the screen. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to introduce the two global variables, and width is equal to 800 and then the height is equal to 600. So then I can use that here. So if we want to center in the x direction, we should deal with the width of the canvas minus our width divided by 2, the width of our ball. So in order to use a variable, of course, we want to make sure we actually set it. So we want to set it first before we start using it here. Then y is equal to, height divided by 2 minus width divided by 2. All this stuff we already went over in class, by the way. So then for our velocities, what we're going to do is actually create random velocity, maybe, just for fun. So random, something between -5 and 5, for example. We're going to do the same thing for Vy. Like that. So now we are gonna make the ball itself deal with drawing, and so it should be calling upon ellipse x, y, width, draw itself, and then it should of course update its position based on its velocity. Y plus equals Vy, and of course don't mess up, velocity in the x direction should be changing the x position only. Velocity in the y position is changing my y. So it doesn't yet exist. Consider this a blueprint for that object, but the blueprint again is not the object itself. So to create an object out of that blueprint, we're going to create it up here. As you can see here, now I'm going to use ball as a type. B is equal to new ball. This is similar to creating a variable, for example, like int my var is equal to 5, right? So my var is the name, b is the name of my variable, and then int is my data type, but here ball is my data type. And then this side of town, this is calling upon the constructor, which is this set of code. Alright, now that we have a ball, we can tell that ball to draw itself. And so when we click play, we get something super big on the screen. Oops. So remember to call upon background here, background 0. So we can redraw the background, and then let's make sure that our width isn't set to a ridiculously big number. So instead of calling width, which is this one, I called W, which is actually set to 800. So you want to make sure you don't mess up your variables like I just did. Whoops. So So now that we've fixed that, we should have our ball there. Unfortunately, the random method, there is a chance for that variable to be 0, and so that's what we're seeing there, which is annoying. Actually, so annoying that I should change it so that it doesn't do that. So what we're going to do is introduce a while loop that says, hey, you know what? If for whatever reason the velocity in the x happens to be 0, I'm going to try and randomly generate a number again. I will do this as well in the y direction. This will prevent any of the velocities from being 0. Because of course we want movement in the x and y. We don't want it moving just side to side or up and down. So there you go. I showed you how to kind of essentially reorganize the code such that this file itself we can go to and we can change it up, and we can organize what it means to be a ball essentially. And then this is just in charge of everything else. You can still put everything else here, like public void key pressed. You can still put public void key release, etc. So then what you would do is on your end you would create other objects. The only other object you would create would be the paddle itself, and so you would be doing something similar to this, right? A paddle will draw itself. A paddle may have an XY and then a width, and then depending on how you're going to deal with movement, it might have a VX and a VY. And so that's kind of like an introduction to object-oriented programming, taking what we've done already and then objectifying it. I made up that verb, I think, but whatever.